Still figuring out life? Good. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. I'm Mary Choi Kelly, PhD, mom, leadership coach, and C-suite veteran with 30 years of helping leaders thrive. On this podcast, Fresh Out and Figuring It Out, we give young adults the mic so they can share their stories and everyone listening can understand who they truly are and what's on their minds. We're also showing the real side of young men, one that defies stereotypes, so that we can rewrite the story together and help every young adult, both men and women, grow into confident, compassionate leaders who know their worth and lead with heart. Follow the show. We're figuring it out together, one story at a time. Hello, and welcome back to Fresh Out and Figuring It Out. Thanks for tuning in today because you will be very happy that you did. Today's episode is about navigating life after college, and it is filled with some very wise insights and thoughts from a young man, Connor Callahan. And as you know, we begin every episode with a would you rather question because life is all about choices. So I have a question for you, Connor, to kick things off. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right. So would you rather always find free parking or never wait in line again?
Okay. Well, I do live in a tough place to find parking in San Francisco, but I do think that skipping the line, like going through an airport with no line or like, I don't know, DMV, that would be a life hack that I would never, I think that would beat it. So I have to go with the beating the line option.
That would be a pretty cool life hack for sure. I would agree with you on that. So, thanks, Connor, for joining. In addition to having a great first name, I really feel lucky to know you and your family through my son, Connor. You and your brother both attended the Thatcher School like my boys did. And your brother, Will, and my son, Connor, are really good friends. I've had a chance to get to know you, your family, your amazing mom. She's a big runner, and I understand that she's doing the Abbott World Marathon Majors, which I had to Google that to find out exactly what it was. So it is a series of prestigious races consisting of Tokyo, Boston, London, Berlin, Chicago, and New York. And she has completed all of them except for Tokyo, which she is scheduled to run in March, which is just crazy and amazing all in one.
Yeah, my mom is amazing. She just did Berlin. It was a really hot day, but she finished 69th in her age group out of, I don't know, however many people. It's amazing to see her. And she just started running relatively recently, only during COVID. So it's just amazing what she's done in this amount of time.
Yeah, that's like 5 years ago. So I didn't know that. I mean, the locations sound amazing. I think I would probably be better as a Abbott World Marathon fan or travel buddy, but I don't think I could even do one of those. So very cool.
Yeah, my dad is good at that too.
That's right. All right. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Connor?
Sure. So after high school, I knew I wanted to study computer engineering. I'm always someone that liked math and those type of subjects in school. I decided to go to Santa Clara and study computer engineering. I'm naturally someone who's sort of introverted, and during high school, I sort of broke out of that a little bit, but still in college, it was a completely different environment. Still, very structured, but less structured than it was in high school. So I had a lot more decisions to make about how I wanted to spend my time. I'm naturally someone who likes to spend time by myself. So it was a challenge to, break out of that mold a little bit. But I did enjoy a lot of aspects of college.
Yeah. So when you went to Santa Clara University, you studied computer engineering, which what a great place to do that, right? In the middle of Silicon Valley and, a lot of great things happening in that area. So tell me a little bit about your passion for computers and websites and all of those things.
Yeah, I'm just like very into like the nitty gritty, like math and like sciences and that type of stuff. But what really got me into it was first learning about it in high school. I watched the movie Moneyball. It's about the Oakland A's and the general
Great
manager.
movie.
Great movie, one of my favorite movies of all time, and that actually got me really into math and computer science. And my first computer science experience was with I went to this quote unquote Moneyball Academy. It was literally called Moneyball Academy, and we would look at baseball and sports in general, and learn how to deal with the numbers and like analyze it. And so like during college, I had a full freshman year, but then during sophomore year, COVID happened. And so sophomore and junior year was pretty much all remote. And so I had more time. I was living at home with my folks, and I was, I come from a fairly entrepreneurial family. My family we have a family business. And so, uh, learning these new skills that I did in college, I wanted to put them to use. And so I started making websites just kind of for myself, but also I wanted to see if I could make something that other people would use. There's one website that did fairly well. I would just usually post it online somewhere, and if people liked it, then they liked it, and I would monitor the traffic. And so I was exploring a lot with websites, during COVID, and ultimately I ended up continuing doing that after college.
So the Moneyball Academy, what was your kind of takeaway from that? Was it what you thought it was going to be?
Yeah, it was. It was very cool to do because I was surrounded with a bunch of other people that had the same interests as me. Not everyone is super into the like specific niche like sports analytics like I was. So going into that environment was really cool to see. It was more or less what I was expecting, but it's just I was more interested in making things and like making products, whereas that was more crunching numbers, so to speak, and just being one sort of cog in an organization.
It sounds like you're more creative in kind of thinking of new ideas and maybe services that might help people. So how do these ideas come to you? Like when you said you've created a couple websites, like can you describe
Sure.
what it was and what got you interested in it?
So the first website that kind of hooked me, it was very like small. This was like literally one of the first ones I made, if not the first. It was just it's called Lose the Very, 3 words, and it's just
Wait, can you say that again? What was
I'll
it
say it
called?
again. Yeah, lose the very. So like how when you're writing and you might say like I'm very happy or I'm very sad or whatever. Instead of saying very adjective, you can combine those words into a more like concise word and write more elegantly or concisely. So basically all the website did was you put in an adjective like good, happy, sad, whatever, and then it spit out a couple options to how to replace that. And so very simple. Like I just was like the first thing was just basically a spreadsheet, but I made an interface to make it look more fancy, and it did surprisingly well. And then later, when I was out of college, it actually sort of gained a lot of popularity. People started posting it on like TikTok and social media without I even knew about it. My friend one day texted me saying like, did you do this? Like he saw it on his own feed just completely naturally. So that kind of, lit the idea in my head that maybe this could be something I could do. And like other websites, sort of a
Wait,
fun idea.
just go
Yeah.
back on that again.
Yeah.
So how did you come up with that?
It's funny because I'm not a very, like I said, I like math, but I'm always very bad at writing. So maybe part of that was maybe making something for myself to use, but I don't really know. I think it just was something I thought about. It was like, oh, actually, there was one, I think I saw a YouTube video a very long time ago, basically doing that exact thing. I was like, okay, I can take this and make it to a website, and maybe it'll be useful for me and maybe someone else as well. So
Yeah,
that's
I mean, it does sound similar to what people say, right? For
right.
necessity is the mother of invention.
Yes.
So, you kind of thought, oh, well, this is something that I could use.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's still a fair amount of people using it, and I still work on it sometimes. And there are other websites too that I made during this time or later after college. I am a big baseball fan. I made it like a game where you basically have to guess whether a hit is going to be a home run based off a very short clip of contact. It's a niche game, but it's just kind of a fun thing that also has a decent amount of people using it. And that's the thing that really gets me excited, is that when I see the traffic and that people are coming back and using it, that's very exciting to me. And like, there's a podcast that I'm really a big fan of. It's a baseball podcast. It's but they actually shouted the website out that I made, and so that was really cool.
That's so exciting. That's really cool. Okay, so you graduated college with a computer engineering degree from Santa Clara University, all very, very positive things. And then you did what?
Yeah, so unlike most of my other friends, I was like, I'm going to give myself a little bit time before I go the full job corporate route. I really enjoyed making the websites that I was making, and I thought that I could do a lot here. So I continued to do that. A friend of mine at the time who also went to Thatcher was moving into San Francisco. And so I'd always wanted to live in San Francisco. I grew up an hour north of it. And so I was like, let's do it. I roomed with him and two other people I hadn't known before. And I was just basically doing my own thing, making websites. It was definitely an exploratory period, exploring the city. At this time, I also coincided with like probably my first like real relationship. So that was also a big transition for me. And so that was pretty much what I was doing immediately out of college.
So that's a lot of change. You went from college to a bigger city, moved in, living on your own. I mean, I know you live on your own in college. However, it's not quite the same. So you're living on your own with some friends in San Francisco. You're still an entrepreneur, right? You're building websites. You've got a new relationship. That's a lot of change going on. And how long ago was that when you graduated college and moved to San Francisco?
I graduated in June of 2022. And then I moved into San Francisco like September that year, 2022. So it's been, I guess, 3 years now since moving into San Francisco. Yeah.
I think that, many young adults, when they graduate college, have this dream to move into a bigger city, San Francisco, New York, Chicago, what have you. And I think it's a great experience and it's exciting. There's a lot going on in the city. So far, the headline of what you've done over the last 25 years of your life are things that I think most people would want to do. You went to school at Santa Clara in the hotbed of Silicon Valley. Then you moved to San Francisco, which is a center for high-tech companies and entrepreneurs. So how's it been the last 3 years?
Well, it's definitely been a mixed bag. I moved into San Francisco and I didn't really know what to expect. I just wanted to go there and experience it. And, I think during this time, I definitely struggled a lot with feeling like whether I belonged in this new environment or not. Like like you said, is kind of the first time in your life where it's like real life. During college and pretty much all of school, I enjoyed the structure of school, but I also was annoyed by it. I was looking forward to real life. But then finally, when it was here, it's like, oh gosh, what do now I have to decide what to do with my time. And so there was definitely a mixed bag. And so, living in San Francisco, it's all about what you're making and like how ambitious you are and all of these things. And I was still definitely figuring it out during this time. And so I think I had some self-limiting beliefs moving into San Francisco, like, oh, I shouldn't go out and socialize with these people that I might want to, in reality, but it's just like, oh, they won't want to, talk to me or whatever. So I think I definitely limited myself when I first moved into San Francisco, with senses of sort of an imposter syndrome and whatnot. But I ultimately, I got through that, and I did have some good friends. Luckily, I had a good friend that I was living with, and two other people that I came to become close with. And so, I think over time, I'm still, struggling with that in some respect. There's still. I think I probably always will in some amount. But of course, the great part of San Francisco is that there are just so many people that are like me, and I know that there are a lot of other people feeling these same things. Imposter syndrome is very
Yeah,
common.
it is so hard moving to a new city and finding community, especially when you're young. I remember when I moved to Washington, D.C., and I was 24. I was still in my graduate program. And being a West Coaster, the East Coast is a bit of a culture change. And I was single. I knew one person, which was a friend of a friend. And I would go out, and I knew that the perception, especially in Washington, D.C., was all about your academic background and what you're doing. And, so I thought, okay, well, I'm not from the East Coast. I didn't go to a school out here. I'm not working on the Hill. Um, However, I do have a graduate degree. So maybe that, would translate into something. And I have to tell you, I felt completely invisible. The
Mm.
first two questions that I got from people were, who are you working for on the Hill? And if you weren't working for somebody on the Hill, nobody wanted to talk to you.
Mm.
So, to your point, I do think that, it's a very fragile, vulnerable time in your life where you are still trying to figure out who you are. And you don't have a lot of experience, and you don't have a lot of, real things on your CV that you can, refer to or what have you. Most of us, right? And
Yeah.
I would even say those people that do, I'm not 100% sure that they really do, or they're more willing to talk things up, right? And kind of have a personality where they, kind of come across more experienced or, successful in whatever way that might mean. So I understand how that feels because it is a very strange feeling where you feel like, hey, wait, I thought I was doing all the right things. I've gotten a degree. I've kind of followed the path, and you know here I am, and isn't everybody doing this? And then we all can't help but compare ourselves to other people, and especially when people are out there advertising and being so vocal about all the great things they're doing.
Yeah, no, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. Everywhere you go, every city has some way of telling you. And San Francisco is all about startups and whatnot, and it sounds like DC, it's political. It can be really hard because you get stuck in these sort of, like I was talking about, like self-limiting beliefs where it's like, oh, I shouldn't do this, or because they're gonna do think X, Y, and Z of me, so I'll just not bother. And it can be difficult to get out of that state of mind where you are your own obstacle. That's something I've struggled a lot with. It's something that I still struggle with, and only hopefully getting better at dealing with that and getting into the right mindset.
Yeah, so in San Francisco, it sounds like it may be true what some of the stereotypes are, right? Like you go out and everybody is some CEO running a new startup or meeting with investors. I mean, can you kind of talk a little more about your experience and when you went out and the social environments that you were in?
Yeah. So there's definitely that group of the like techies who are totally focused on work and startups and valuations and investors. You'll go out and you'll hear all these people walking in the park talking about X, Y, and Z. There's like founders groups everywhere. It's a lot of like they're a founder and they're a CEO of like their own startup and they're doing their thing. And so just like how people might look past you if you're not doing your own thing. There's also other groups of people in the city that are much kind of counterculture to this that you will find, and I do see that sometimes. I live in an area that's like the Haight-Ashbury in San Francisco, which is a very sort of, well, historically a counterculture place, hippie place, and so a lot of people here don't care. Like the specific neighborhood are sort of counter to that, which is nice to see. But yeah, I love San Francisco, but there's you have to expect when you're walking down the street, you'll hear people talking on some very important phone call, I'm sure, and talking about whatever their company valuation. crypto or something like that. Yeah.
Right. So talk to me a little bit about how you felt imposter syndrome. How did that feel for you? Like, what made you feel that way?
Yeah, it's interesting because, like you said, like I guess you might expect me not to, just because in that I went to a school and I graduated computer engineering. That so maybe I wouldn't feel like I have imposter syndrome or feel like an imposter, but I think that it just is something that develops naturally. I mean, unfortunately, I would probably not put myself in the sort of situations where I could grow the most. Like for me, like I'm always been an introvert. Like going out and socializing is not something that comes naturally to me. And so, instead of going out and meeting people and maybe learning something and growing as a person, I think I hampered myself a lot. I instead maybe would just stay back, maybe hang out with some friends and stay within my comfort zone. Um, and that goes the same with like going out and just meeting new people in general, meeting potential partners and whatnot. It's can be affect my life in all sorts of ways.
I always say that our Western culture is a very extroverted world, and it's difficult to match that energy if you are an introvert. I'm married to an introvert, and it is exhausting to them, to your point. It's not that you can't do it, it takes a lot of energy out of you and it drains you. And so when you have to go to an event, you can go and you can, play the part and engage and have great conversations and do all of those things. So it's not a matter of whether you can do it or not. Your preference is that you would rather not, right? You would prefer to have a more deep, intimate conversation with one person rather than go out and have to showcase who you are and schmooze and say hello and work the room and get to know like 10 other people and talk about what you're doing. And, that's draining.
Yeah.
So, it is difficult when you're going into new environments to have to put on that kind of a face and have to do that over and over again.
Yeah, no, it's always been exhausting to me, and there's not really ever been a huge solution for me other than just like just dealing with it. I mean, maybe something I need to work on is relying on others a little bit more. Something sometimes I have a tendency to just put it all on myself and put the pressure on myself. And so it's like if I'm not where I want to be in my life, then I'll put it all on myself and not express that to anyone else. And so I think that like something that has helped and can help me and other people like me is finding other people that will that you can express these these thoughts to, and then also who can help you dealing with that. Going to a party all by yourself is something is terrifying to me, is a terrifying thought of walking into a room when I don't know anyone there maybe. Whereas if you have someone else, it can make it a lot easier.
Yeah, and you said a couple things. So you're not alone in feeling the pressure to kind of handle things on your own or keep it in, right? Men in general tend to hold their emotions inside. And even if they're feeling distressed or uncomfortable or need some support, they don't tend to reach out. So you're not alone in that. And it's not an introvert quality. It's tends to be more of a young man type of a quality. So it's great that you're aware of that and that you have made it something that you want to focus on. Because I think the other thing that happens is society has kind of sent messages to young men to say that if you ask for help, you're not strong,
Yeah.
or that, young men, you should be able to do everything on your own because you should be strong and you should be independent. I mean, these are the messages that you hear. And in fact, asking for help is probably the strongest thing you can do.
Yeah. No, that's something I wish I really internalized at a much younger age. It's so true. I mean, I don't know how this came to be, but it's just young men and men in general. It's just there's like this stereotype of the sort of like a lone wolf or just someone who just deals with everything and doesn't ever express emotions. I think it's been so damaging to a lot of young men.
Yeah.
That expect that they just need to deal with it and like and just grow up and put it all on yourself inside.
Yeah, I think we're seeing that, negative impact of that today for sure. And to go back onto your introvert personality is quite honestly, I'm an extrovert and I don't want to walk into a party by myself. I do think that having a partner in crime or a wing person or something like that is always helpful because it's just uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to go anywhere and feel, a sense of any kind of rejection. And even if it isn't rejection, it can still feel that way. When you walk into a party or a setting and people tend to all know one another and you're the one that's standing there and you don't know anybody. And then you have to approach them and, et cetera, et cetera. So that is just intimidating, period.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt about it. I don't know if I'll ever be good at that, but I think there are some good tools that you can learn along the way to confront those feelings.
So, what are some of the things that you've done to help you over the last 3 years?
Sure. So specifically dealing with these sort of emotions, I find myself sort of sometimes getting into, I don't know, I sometimes call it like a doom loop or like a negative spiral or just like a negative mindset. And it's just so important for me to not be in that mindset. It's just like you just make all the wrong decisions. You just revert back, or at least me, like I revert back to my just like I'll just sit in my room and not do anything because it's uncomfortable, it's scary, it's whatever. So it's like it's sort of in a state of letting all of your maybe worst qualities like win, you know? And so in order to get out of that state of mind, there are a couple things that I've learned to do over the years. I mean, for one, really the most important thing is just reminding myself of how grateful I am of all of the things that are so valuable in my life. I'm so lucky to like be where I am and have the people in my life that care about me and love me. One thing I love to do every once in a while is like I'll read some letters that people have written me in the past, or like my mom, or even just random people who've written me things. It's just like it reminds you of how, I guess it just, I don't know, it gets you out of that, or at least it gets me out of that state.
It gives you perspective, right?
Yeah.
Because I think one of the things is our mind is so powerful. And there is a self-fulfilling prophecy that happens. And we believe what we see and we see what we believe, right? So if we continue to say to ourselves that I don't fit in, or I don't belong, or I'm less than, or, whatever those messages are that we're saying to ourselves, we really start believing that. And then all we see is more evidence to support that. So that mind training and the voices in our head really have a huge impact on how we feel and what we do. And so, to your point, getting some perspective, like reading letters, I love that. First of all, I write cards to my children all the time. I hope one day they're on some show or something and say that they read my letters, but I will keep doing it. So I love writing cards. And that gives you perspective. It's grounding to say, wait a second, there's all these other things that are true.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. It just breaks the frame of what your current mindset is. Like there are other ways, I'm someone that really likes exercising and going on long runs or just going to the gym. And one thing that's really important is to like I love podcasts and I listen to podcasts, but I also like to just not listen to anything and just let my mind just rest. I think it's really important to not distract yourself when at all hours of the day. Like, it's just like people nowadays just distract themselves to death, I think. And it's just, you never get to the moment to actually reflect on where you are. And it's just like, if you're not in a point where, where you're happy with yourself, or happy with yourself sounds, so serious, but it's just like, you don't ever get to a point to reflect. And it's just, you can just go on and on autopilot, because you're just, you look at your phone, you do this X, Y, and Z. So, I'm a huge fan of going on long walks, exercising, etc., without listening to anything, even music or anything. I just let, I love to do.
I love what you just said, because I do think that there is an addiction to doing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of positives to action. I'm all about action. And I also do have to monitor myself, to your point around, am I just in this autopilot of just doing to do, and I never stop? So I love that concept of rest and how that has helped you.
Yeah. It has helped me. Has helped me a lot, and it's something that I only have really recently gotten, I think, good at. I think it does take a certain amount of skill that we've lost, that we've sort of atrophied over the course of the last 15, 20 years, as technology has just improved so much that is everywhere. It's been a huge factor in my life.
So talk a little more about that. Talk about,
Mhm.
how that came about for you, as a technique, as a tool, and
Mhm.
then what you have done to put it into practice, and how you have seen the impact of that.
Yeah, I mean, I heard about it a while ago. I think my mom actually shared like a podcast with me about, it was something about on the topic of, like how we are distracting ourselves too much, or how technology is sort of negatively impacting us. And I'm not totally of the opinion. I love technology, but I do think that the way we use technology has been, really detrimental. And so I basically have always been someone that liked to be in a state of like mindfulness from a very young age. I remember my middle school teacher, we would have like mindfulness competitions essentially, where we just sit the whole class being silent. And we'd do that for, I don't know, probably like 8 minutes, but it felt like for forever. And so I like, being mindful, and I call it mindfulness. Some people call it like meditation or whatever. But, um, for me, I think that being able to be in your own head and not have any stimulation is a critical skill that we've really missed out. We've really lost over the course of, as we've become more technologically dependent. Like for my on my 25th birthday, I decided that I wanted to walk, for whatever reason, 25 miles. So I did that, and I did that all without listening to anything, and just being in my head. And after a certain amount of time, it's not like, there's a point where you're like craving, look at your phone or whatever, X, Y, and Z. But um, after a certain point, you get to a point where you start thinking about things that you wouldn't otherwise reflect on, that we have been like losing, I think, as a society. That we don't think about, like I don't know, just like past conversations, or even just not thinking about anything. Like, I think that's like, just like how sleep is a restful state where you're like growing as a person, and literally growing, like when you work out, and then you don't gain your like muscle when you are working out. You actually you grow when you are sleeping. And it's just the same way with your mind. I think it's really been important for me to be able to introduce that sort of restfulness into my life.
Well, I love what you said. I mean, you made some really great points. And I know it wasn't meant for you to come up with a great name for it, but the doom loop. I mean, I think that is a great description of what goes on in a lot of our heads, right? That we just go around and around, and it's a doom loop. So kind of breaking out of that doom loop, your points around being grateful, getting outside, and resting so you can grow. I love it, because I think sometimes the biggest changes in our lives come from the smallest actions. I really believe that. I think that it's the small things that we do that have the greatest impact. And so all of those things are things that anybody can do anywhere. And so I appreciate so much you sharing what you've learned and how it's affected you and how you've put it into practice. So I want to talk a little bit now about, you mentioned that when you moved to San Francisco, and you also said that you were in a relationship, which again can be a difficult thing. You're in a new city, you've got a new relationship. So tell me a little bit about, that experience for you.
Yeah, so definitely the relationship was a big change in my life. I'd never really been in a situation where I was really like I was thinking about somebody else before, I guess my own like needs. I mean, it was really a big change for me, and I grew a lot during that relationship. It was definitely a whirlwind, like a part of my life that I'll always remember, especially moving into a new city. Like I didn't really, I didn't know how to navigate it. She was actually from San Francisco. So, yeah, it was just a really amazing part of my life that I think it taught me a lot about, I think, being a man and developing as a human, really.
Yeah. What were some of those things?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I was not very good beforehand about thinking about, just the simple things. Just like I never was someone that was like big on like holidays or like Valentine's Day. It was never something that really mattered to me before, but suddenly now, if I didn't do something, it was a problem. And so, like, just those sorts of skills is almost, I don't know how to describe it, was just really important.
Also, I mean, that stuff has, I have to tell you, in the last, whatever number of years, especially with social media, it's exploded. It's like 10 times more difficult now in a relationship than when I was your age. Yes, Valentine's Day has always been around, and I am probably one of those rare women who can't stand Valentine's Day because I feel like it is everyone just pretending. And it actually makes me a little bit nauseous. My poor husband, at the time when we started dating, and I worked in a big office, and it's this catch-22. If you have a boyfriend or you're in a relationship and you don't get flowers sent to you and you're at the office, because literally you get called, like, the mailroom is sending things up and you have to go pick it up from the front. And women are just walking all day picking up their flowers. So, if I didn't get something, then I'd probably feel bad because I'd be the only one sitting there without flowers that I had to parade up and bring back so that everyone could see. And my poor husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, sent me a dozen red roses, which are a fortune on Valentine's Day because everyone jacks up their prices. But to me, it was like the worst thing you could do because, number one, how cliche, red roses. And on Valentine's Day, like, I would way prefer someone to send me flowers on a random Tuesday and that they were tulips, something totally unique, or an orchid or something. But to like fall into this like prescribed, like everyone's supposed to send red roses on Valentine's Day and everyone's supposed to go out to dinner on Valentine's Day. To this day, I have never gone out to dinner on Valentine's Day because I can't stand it. Because you're all jammed into a restaurant. It's a fixed menu and everyone has to pretend that they're in love. And you know that the majority of them aren't.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I went on a little bit of a rant.
No, I love it.
But you can only hope that you meet someone like me, I guess. But but it's so hard because now it's like I see posts of like, it's boyfriend day, it's girlfriend day, it's this day, it's that day, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, how are you supposed to keep up? So I do think that pressure is just, it's escalated so much instead of just, how about we appreciate each other and be good to each other every day? So anyway, I interrupted, and hope I didn't totally lose your train of thought, because I want to hear the rest of what you were going to say. But, this keeping up with all those social expectations of all these, social media days that have been created is just, it's exhausting.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more, but unfortunately, a lot of people do care about that type of stuff. So that was something that I had to learn how to deal with. And other than that, it was just a really big exercise in taking agency in my life. Like, we were in a relationship, and ultimately, I wasn't sure if I wanted to be in a long term relationship or to end things. And so, like, ultimately, that was a huge decision for me. I thought about it a long time, and ultimately, I had to make a decision about what I wanted my life to be and who I wanted to spend my life with. And it's a really big decision, obviously, that I will never know if it's right or wrong, but it's just how at the end of the day, it's like you have to make a decision in life. Not making a decision is a decision. And so that's something that I'm really happy that I had the opportunity to be in that position, because that's what I think life is all about.
So tell me a little bit about just kind of what you're doing now in building community in San Francisco, and how you feel about living there today.
Yeah, I mean, I'm loving San Francisco right now. Now I have my own apartment to myself, which has pros and cons. Pro, obviously, I don't have to deal with other people not cleaning their dishes, but also there's the aspect of now I don't have anyone else in the apartment with me or something to hang out with at any time. So building community is all, there's a lot of other people around my area that I have opportunities to hang out with. There's like run clubs upon run clubs in San Francisco. Everyone has a run club that, I've been to a couple of those. And there's like a coffee club that meets every Friday that I'll go to every once in a while. I don't even really like coffee, but it's just to go to talk to people. And it's a good time. And another thing that I like to do is I host a poker game pretty much once a week at my place. Just a casual poker game, nothing serious, but it's a really good excuse, and is to just like hang out and like just see what's up with my friend's life. It's just like when you're an adult, it's like there's not a reason to like see each other necessarily. It's like you're not working together, you're not like going to school together necessarily. So it's just like you need these sorts of events. I think it's really been important for me, at least. So it's not like I need to have some huge reason to go see each other. It's just it's really important, like that aspect of just seeing each other.
So what advice would you give somebody that is graduating college, or at any stage in their life moving into a new city? What are some of the things, and especially for somebody maybe that's more like you, that's more introverted, that doesn't want necessarily social interaction 24/7? So what kind of advice would you give somebody based on what you've learned?
Well, for me, definitely the most important thing, especially for someone like me, is you really need to find like at least one person who is not like you, who's like extroverted and has a ton of friends, and so you can basically just go and like steal all of their friends. And then you're invited to their events, and then you can and socialize, and it's a lot easier that way, and you can kind of be brought into the fold, so to speak. If you're not in that situation, it's really easy to feel just apart or separate from the group. And so like if I were in that situation again, like I was lucky I had some good extroverted friends that they would just invite me to things, and I would just meet people that way. But if you don't have that, because not everyone has someone that you can find, I mean, there's, at least in San Francisco, there are so many ways to meet people, just like groups or whatnot. Like I meet people at the gym, I meet people just going to the coffee shop. So like it's also great if you have a good roommate that you happen to know. Like a lot of people just move into SF and will just like meet roommates through like Facebook or like something like that. So it's a really important decision to decide like who you're living with, because that can really influence your entire life. Like even if you aren't like going to be friends with them or not, but it's really a key decision to make. Yeah.
So, do you feel like there have been some activities or things that have been more successful for you in meeting people on your own than not?
Um, let's see. I guess the ways that I find people the easiest is in shared activities that like we all enjoy. Like, I don't know, there's sort of a stereotype about guys that when they guys hang out, we just like do something like an activity, whereas like maybe when women hang out, they just sit down and like talk or something like that. So for me, I love to play tennis, and so I've met a lot of people just through playing tennis. There's a group chat where like people will just say like, "Hey, anyone want to play?" Or there's, I used so through shared activities, or like rock climbing is really big here. Like I don't even not even a huge like rock climber, but I do go to a rock climbing gym to exercise, and so there's just a lot of I think those are the most effective ways that I've met people is through like a shared activity where you can easily like talk to someone about like, oh, you like tennis X Y and Z. Um, so
Yeah, it definitely helps when you have a common interest. It
yeah.
helps to break the ice and you have something that you can naturally talk about. What I heard through some of your examples as well is that you somewhat, maybe not forced yourself, but you did do things that maybe you wouldn't have done before. You were going to a coffee shop to meet people when you don't even really like coffee. You went to the rock climbing gym, even though you really don't rock climb, so putting yourself in situations where you are going to have an opportunity to meet more people, even if it's not something that you would have chosen to do on your own. Would that be fair?
Yeah, that's definitely fair. At the end of the day, you do need to actually do something. It's
Well, you have
you,
to put yourself out there.
yeah, you need to put yourself out there, and it's uncomfortable, but that's ultimately like something you have to do. You can't just, well, you can. I mean, there are people out there not doing that, but I think it's just a waste, and it's unfortunate.
Well, if your goal is to meet people, you have to put
Yeah,
yourself out there,
yeah.
and it is very uncomfortable and may never feel natural. However, it does get easier over time.
Absolutely.
So let's talk more about career. So what's going on the career side?
Yeah. So basically, I mentioned earlier that my family we have a family business, and so I never felt any pressure by any means to join the family business, but ultimately I started considering whether I wanted to start working more on like at a company or a startup, and I came to the conclusion that if I was going to work anywhere, at least I wanted to start working with the family, and if I think that was at least the most fulfilling option for me, because I'd seen my parents working on it my entire life, and so I was so grateful for them for building this thing and so I wanted to give back in some way, but maybe I was putting some pressure on myself, but ultimately and now I'm still working on sort of websites on the side or weekends and stuff like that, but my main focus right now is working with my family business.
So take a minute and tell everybody what your family's business is, because it's pretty cool.
Yeah, we make cheese and yogurt out of sheep's milk and cow's milk. My dad and his mom and my grandma started it 1986, I think, a really long time ago. My dad was also just out of college. He graduated, I think, in 86, maybe 84, or some year between there. And he was also just trying to figure his life out. And ultimately, they started making cheese out of sheep's milk. We were the first licensed sheep dairy on the West Coast, and they just started selling cheese at farmers markets. And since then, we've just been growing very slowly. But over time, it's been built with a lot of blood, sweat, and tears by my parents. My mom, of course, came along and joined the business eventually. And now, we make use cow's milk, and we make a lot of yogurt as well. So for them, I do a lot of more on the tech side of things, but frankly, it's a small company, so I end up doing all sorts of tasks, whatever is needed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's Bellwether Farms, right?
Yes. Sorry.
And Yeah. Bellwether Farms, there's goat cheese, there's yogurt. You can find them everywhere. And it's pretty cool and amazing. It sounds like you were like contemplating, do I start getting more experience by working in a company? And then you're like, wait, if I'm going to join a company, why wouldn't I join my family's company?
Yeah, absolutely. That's basically the conclusion. I think there maybe was some reasoning. There's some idea of maybe going out and learning somewhere else first, but I did really want to get into the family business, and like there's so much to be learned by both my parents have so much knowledge working at this company for the majority of their lives. So I just thought there's so much to learn by going there.
Well, and quite honestly, when you work for a smaller company, I always tell people that you're going to get such breadth of experience that you don't get in larger organizations. In larger organizations, your role is very defined. This is your job. Whereas in a smaller organization, you really get to get involved in all aspects of the business, which is really what you want. You want to kind of see how a business operates and gain more, general management type skills that can be applied anywhere, wherever you go, whether you continue to work for your family or after, do something else.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the one day I'm working a forklift, and then the next day I'm on a call talking about our like financials or something like that. It's a completely a total breadth of work. It can be really exciting, but also it can be a lot sometimes with just there's not a lot of people there, and so a lot of the work ultimately falls to a very small amount of people. Yeah.
Yeah, your parents probably really appreciate the fact that you're involved. It's got to be pretty special to have you there.
I think so. I think so.
Great. So, what advice would you give other young adults about life after college?
Yeah, life after college, for me at least, it's about um, deciding what you want your life to look like. I've talked to a little bit about how before, in college and before that, your life is kind of planned for you, but then now you have to decide, what do I want my life to be? I mean, it's a really big question, and so my advice is to try lots of different things. I mean, it's a lot of people will say something like that, but I think it's true, especially when you're young, is to experiment and to try different things, and to also it's important to not prioritize short term maybe achievement instead of like working on yourself long term. Whereas maybe you hopefully will have a very long career and a long life, and that these decisions you make early on in your life will compound over the course. And so instead of maybe working at a job where you're learning less, maybe work somewhere else where you get more experience and can maybe meet more interesting people. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, I think definitely one of the most important points that you emphasized a couple times is that it's great to have the freedom to do whatever you want. There's no schedule, you don't have classes, you don't have anyone telling you what you have to do, and be careful what you ask for. You have no schedule, you have no one telling you what to do, and
Yeah.
so it sounds like what you're saying is be wise about how you leverage your time, where you put your energy.
Mhm.
And sure, through the process, like anything, it's going to take a little time to transition into that type of freedom. And so give yourself a break and think about your decisions and how it might impact your longer term.
Absolutely. I don't by any means mean that everyone should be thinking about 30 years in the future. It's very important to think about the being in living in the present. It's just really what I mean is just to I think you can do both basically. And I hope that, a lot of people, I think a lot of people maybe are trapped in a certain a career path or an expectation that maybe is not the most fulfilling for them long term. I don't know about their life, but I think a lot of people, at least a lot of my friends, I feel like have expressed that they're in a job that they don't feel like they are, see themselves long term, and maybe they end up will being in long term because sometimes it's just easier to stay rather than to leave. So I think it's important to be conscious of where you're putting yourself, because you can wind up in sort of a golden handcuff situation where it's too hard to leave, or but you're not really happy with your life. Then, well,
I
yeah.
I think it's a really great point, Connor, especially because, as a parent, um, you know, while I don't believe I'm putting expectations on my kids, but they probably feel it, right? Like, you know, they went to college for 4 years and we spent a lot of money on their education. And so there has to be some internal pressure to feel like, okay, I need to go get a job. And, I have to pursue this career track, or I have to do XYZ. Because if I just go off and say I'm going to move to San Francisco because I just want to live my life in San Francisco and, figure it out, that may not feel right for them, and they may feel that it's not going to feel right for us. So I do think that there is a lot of pressure, whether it's spoken or unspoken, to feel like you have to make these decisions that are, following a path, or, progressing your career and getting that job or that title or that, that salary or what have you. So I think that is a really, really good point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's a lot more to life than than just progressing in a career. I think a lot of that can ultimately be empty. So you have to really consider your own life and your own true, like, mental, whether you're actualizing what you really want to be. I mean, not you don't have to go pursue your childhood dream. Maybe you do, but I think everyone has some sort of dream, and whether you're pursuing it or not doesn't necessarily mean you should pursue it. But maybe you should. Maybe you should at least try it. A lot of people are too afraid to even try because then they'll be afraid. What will happen if they fail? They'd rather just live. Always saying that they will eventually.
So what are some of the lessons that you've learned over the last 3 years?
I think that, well, there are a couple different lessons. I think in relationships, I think it's important to be intentional with your time. And ultimately, that might mean cutting off someone or not spending as much time with someone that maybe they would. And that could, but that ability to say it will hurt in the short term, but will be good for me in the long term, is something that, can only really come with experience. But that is something I've learned to do. And I've learned a lot about myself. I know that I already knew a lot of this. If I'm spending too much time alone, then I know that's not going to be good for me. I think I do, even if I'm introverted, and I will find myself a lot of the time alone or by myself. I do think that I learned a lot about myself, and that I do need to spend time with other people, believe it or not. So those two things have been really important for me to learn about, like, how I best operate. And I think it's important for everyone to actually understand, like, how do you best operate, and what are the environments that you actually can control, because you can control your environment, and it's best to put yourself, in a situation where you're actually in an environment where you can best thrive.
Great. Thank you so much, Connor. And I know that you've shared a number of times that you're introverted, and that this took a lot out of you to have this conversation, to know that it's being recorded and will be shared. So I just really, really appreciate you pushing yourself, even by just doing this. You've really pushed yourself outside your comfort zone. I really want to thank you for that before we move into the next set of questions.
Well, thank you, Mary. I really appreciate you giving me an opportunity to talk. I know it's also been a big push for you to start this podcast. So I I'm really thankful for you for putting this out there. I think a lot of people will enjoy listening to it.
Great. So let me ask you some questions that I'm asking every guest. What's one stereotype that you've heard about young adults your age that you would like to dispel?
Well, I think that there is a bit of a stereotype with maybe young men is in that they don't maybe have the same level of emotional, I don't know, availability or ability to express their emotions or even have the same emotions that other people do or other maybe young women or do. And I think that there's obviously an element of truth to that as I've expressed, but what I'm trying to say is that um, if young men do have or young adults have a role model or the expectation is there that you can be more vulnerable and open up, I think that you'll find that you'll be surprised, or at least people will be surprised about young men's capacity for vulnerability and expressing themselves and being there and not bottling everything up with, you know.
Great. What are the three most important things you look for when you consider a job, company, or career?
Okay. The first thing is just who I'm working with, whether I feel like I can learn from them and grow from them. I don't want to be in a situation where I feel like I'm just stagnant. Sort of similarly, I feel like I want to be in a place where I can express, like, I guess make a difference is one way to put it, but like actually be in a place where I can actualize my own ideas and not just be necessarily a cog in a machine, but actually have some space to express myself. I've been in a situation where I could do whatever I want, and I love doing that. But there's also pros to being in a company. But if you're in a company, then I think it's really important to have some amount of room to, be expressive. And I think the last thing, which is just being in a situation where you are good at what you do. I think there is something to be said about just the art of practice and mastering, your craft, whatever that is. And I think it's really important to be in a situation where you're actually confident in your abilities and you can get the job done. And that's something obviously you want to be able to learn, and but there's also an element of just skill, I think, that is important, I think, in each decision.
Great.
Mhm.
So here's some questions about young men. What do you think it means to be a man?
Okay. So I think to be a man, I think the most important thing is to have, for lack of a better word, some sort of a purpose, maybe. I think to be a man is about values, and whether you have them or not, I think, over the course of your life, you develop your values and what is valuable to you and your principles. And so I think it's really important for young men to actually think about this and not just take the default values or not even think about it, and actually develop those values and what you stand for and what you believe in.
Great. What do you think it means to be masculine?
I think that masculinity is about maybe taking those values and actually actualizing them. It's how you express yourself to the world. That could be a lot of different ways, but I think it's about taking your values and actually putting them into practice in your own way. I think discipline and it can be part of that for a lot of people, and staying principled to your ideals, but it could mean a lot of things for a lot of people. So I don't want to say anything too specific.
What does it mean to you?
For me, I think it means I think it means I think it means being there a lot for the people that have given you so much, like always, for my loved ones, my parents, like being there and expressing how much I care about them. But it also means not just them, but also my friends. And so for me, it's really about giving back, I think, to the people who, who've given me so much.
Great. How would you describe yourself?
I think I'm sort of, like I said, I'm sort of an introvert, but I'm also very much someone that likes to optimize things. I like to tinker. I'm sort of a health addict. I like to try out different, health things and run and exercise. So for me, I'm always looking for new things to try. I like gadgets. I would say I'm maybe an optimizer type of person. Yeah.
I love that word. What does supporting young men look like, in your opinion?
Supporting young men, I think it's all about developing role models and something that young men can look up to and see themselves in, that isn't just maybe a stereotypical, Hollywood actor who's just bottling up his emotions and not expressing them.
Great. What would you like to see change about the story about men?
Well, right now, the young men are, I think, really struggling to really go out there and spread their wings and put themselves out there. There's a lot of stats about the more young men who are not in relationships or maybe living with their parents, or not that necessarily a bad thing, but it's just they're not going out there and meeting people and having relationships as nearly as much as they had in the past. So that for me is a red flag and something I'd really love to see changed about young men.
Thank you so much, Connor. I loved our conversation. And again, just appreciate your honesty, your openness, being vulnerable, and for challenging yourself and for really putting yourself out there. And I know that your message and your story is going to have a huge impact on others. So thank you again for being on the show.
Thank you so much, Mary.
Okay, take care.
You too. Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode, and now it's your turn. Take what you heard today and put it into action. Share this episode with a friend who's figuring life out too. And let's build a generation of leaders who lead with heart. Follow the show, leave a review, and connect with me on social so we can keep figuring it out together. See you next time.